More than 70% of the government's $30 billion in farm subsidies goes to the largest 10% of farm businesses. Would you support cutting or revising federal farm subsidies?
The short answer is yes, but I have an interesting fact that probably most of you didn't know. I didn't know it myself until I was told. Of all the congressional districts in North Carolina in the last 10 years, which one do you think has more farmers than they had 10 years ago? It's our district. And who are these farmers? A lot of them are young, a lot of them are small operators, they're organic, they're selling at our farmers markets each weekend and in between. We have thriving agriculture here in the 4th District, and it's no longer a well-kept secret. It's actually an important component of our economy. So I was a supporter when the Farm Bill was debated in Congress last. I was a supporter, first of all, of whittling those subsidies back, although you do need, in farming, you need to have some kind of safety net. But we cut those subsidies back. We made certain kinds of support available to smaller operators, and we made our food stamp and nutrition programs more robust. In agriculture, as in many areas, we need to watch our budgets very, very carefully, and I think we need to encourage the kind of free enterprise in farming that we're seeing here in the 4th District. I have made sure there was support there for building farmers markets, for a cannery out in Hillsborough, for helping our farmers, the incubator out at the Breeze Farm. There are great things going on here. And I've been supportive in the ways that I can, and I just believe this is more than people realize. This is a cutting-edge area of this economy.
Dr. Lawson, you have 90 seconds.
I would also favor eliminating and phasing out our system of farm subsidies that grossly distort our agricultural markets. I also understand that the biggest threat that many of our smaller farmers face today is simple realities like the estate tax. If you're trying to build equity in property and build production in our local economy for the future, if you've got an illiquid asset like a farm and you're taxed on that, that doesn't work. We've got to get rid of the death tax and stop that destructive effect on our agricultural sector. Finally, I will say that Mr. Price, for some reason, despite our having this resurgence in small community-based agriculture, chose to vote in favor of a Food Safety Modernization Act that will essentially regulate small and local producers out of business by putting the FDA in charge in a one-size-fits-all fashion across the entire spectrum of agricultural regulation, essentially putting us in a position where you might be able to get safe food, but it's going to come from a container full of tomatoes from Mexico or from Cargill or Monsanto or one of the agri-giants who have been chosen to write these regulations.
Congressman Price, you have 30 seconds.
Well, to coin one of my opponent's favorite phrases, you need to read the bill. You need to read the bill. No, because the House bill had the kind of exclusion you're talking about for small operators. Knowing where your food comes from, being able to trace it isn't a problem at a farmer's market, is it? You know where that food came from. You know who the operator is. This shouldn't apply to them. On the other hand, when you have these contagions of tainted food and shady operations in some of these big packing plants and so forth, we certainly need to have oversight of that and know where those products came from. That's the distinction.
The Triangle has been blessed or cursed with rapid growth, and projections show more than 1 million new residents of Durham, Wake, and Orange and surrounding counties in the coming decade. What is working in our federal transportation policy and what needs to change? And what do you see as the relative roles of and funding for highway and roads, transit, and bicycle and pedestrian systems in our transportation future?
North Carolina considers itself successful if we do enough politicking and grease enough palms to get back 92 cents out of every transportation tax dollar that we send to Washington. That doesn't make sense to me. I think we need to keep our resources locally for education as well as for transportation, but stop feeding a bureaucracy in Washington that then micromanages with strings attached how we meet our transportation needs. The decisions about how best to get around this growing region need to be made with local resources to meet local needs. And as a federal legislator, I don't believe it's my role to micromanage how we develop transportation here or how someone else manages transportation in California. So the more local control we can have over this process, the better. Having said that, I do think that we need to look at the densities in our different areas and how people live and move about, but we need to remember that what makes our country great is a system of capitalism that's based upon private property rights. And I am concerned that in an effort to try to, quote unquote, manage growth, we are giving up control of private property rights to essentially an agenda that is going to be increasingly dominant in telling us how we can live, how we can work, and how we can play. That's not what makes us a great and free country.
Thank you, Dr. Lawson. Congressman Price, you have 90 seconds.
Well, this is one of those instances where a little translation might be in order. What my opponent believes is that any federal aid to transportation is unconstitutional. The Eisenhower interstate highway system, enacted largely for national defense purposes, security purposes, is unconstitutional. We should be on our own. And I've got news for him too. When you try to get a better share for North Carolina out of the highway funds, it's not a matter of greasing palms, it's a matter of fighting hard for the right kind of legislation, fighting hard for the right kind of administration. And by the way, we need to fight hard within North Carolina, because the so-called equity formula in our state does not give our region, the Triangle region, a fair share of highway funds. So we need to fight for a robust and responsible highway program, and we need to diversify that program. I've fought hard over the years for transit as a transportation alternative here in the Triangle. And we're on our way, fortunately, with a lot of good work going on locally, on our way to having a plan that we can work on and begin to make progress on. I am delighted that we've gotten the high-speed rail support that we have. So through this very station, you will have trains going from Raleigh to Charlotte in just over 2 hours. That's a great alternative. Great for our economy, great as a recovery measure, and great for our diverse transportation system that we must have in the 21st century. Great for economic development.
Thank you, Congressman Price. Dr. Lawson, you have 30 seconds.
So real quick, I'm not the Supreme Court, okay? I don't declare anything unconstitutional. But what I do think is critical to remember is that Washington doesn't give us anything without first taking it from us or taking it from someone else first. So we need to be asking a different question. How can we meet our very real transportation needs using local resources, and how much money should we be sending to Washington so it can focus on critical things that it should be doing, like securing the border, national defense, and ensuring that we have a system of free trade within our 50 United States to build a prosperous future?